People get in arguments all the time, and sometimes we like to eavesdrop on those arguments because it's interesting what these people have to say while they're fighting. Now, something like that has happened in our first story. G'day there guys, it's your main man Marky, and welcome back to another episode of r/Am I the Arsehole. Now, if you love today's bloody good content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on that Barbie, and get ready for some bloody exceptional stories. Let's go. Am I the arsehole for not wanting to drink at my friend's house anymore? So I have a male friend who is married. We hang out from time to time and we like to drink together. Usually when we drink, we're either playing video games or sitting out in the yard just shooting the crap. To put this in perspective, we drink together about maybe once a month, sometimes twice, but rarely. My husband has a strict no drinking and driving rule, which I respect wholeheartedly. And if it weren't for the fact that we have a 14-month-old child, he would come and get me. But even 5 miles up the road is still too far away for my comfort for us to leave her alone. My friend is taken to letting me sleep it off in the guest room, and I just leave in the morning. I usually strip the bed myself, put it in the dirty hamper, and leave things generally the way I found it. This good-sounding situation went south when I overheard my friend and his wife talking after I had gone to bed. We rounded out the night outside and came in. He set up the guest room for me as per usual, and I went to bed. I overheard her talking and she said the exact words, "If she's too drunk to drive, then I will drive her home." I immediately felt uncomfortable in the house because it was very obvious I wasn't welcome. After everything died down, I honestly just walked home. I couldn't sleep. I texted my friend to let him know that I'd made it home, and he was furious, but glad that I was safe. The next morning, I went back to go grab my car, and I told him that I probably won't be drinking with him anymore because of what I'd heard last night. He said it was kinda crappy of me to drop that on him like that. Am I the arsehole? And edit to add, I didn't think I would have to add this, but oh well. The first few times this happened, I actually asked her to ensure me that she was okay with it. I was actually going to sleep in my car, but they both insisted I sleep in the guest room. She had never made the offer to drive me home before, and I would never ask someone to drive me home at 2 a.m. We had only been at this for about 6 months total. And edit 2, a common statement that's coming out here is the possibility for me to take an Uber or a cab home. Unfortunately, this is not a possibility, because we live out in the boonies of Alabama. We unfortunately do not have any rideshare services that'll ride that far out. Also, another question that keeps popping up is the no drinking and driving rule. In Alabama, the legal limit for driving is under .08. My husband has this rule in place that there is absolutely no driving regardless of how little I've drank. So 1 beer, 7 beers, .002 or .08, I can't get behind the wheel of a vehicle. I don't know this wife that had a problem with you personally, so I can't particularly make a judgment about her, but until now you weren't aware that your presence, especially sleeping over all these times, was a problem, and I don't think I can blame anyone for this one. It sucks that you had to find out this way, but it's better than not finding out at all. You didn't do anything wrong in this situation, and I don't think either of them really did anything wrong, legally or morally. This is just a little bit of a tiff, so I'm going to go no assholes here. Now in the comments, Geranium27 says, I feel like there's a lot of hyper judgment here because a mother is drinking alcohol with a married man? 1. Believe it or not, 2 married people of the opposite gender can be friends. 2. She's not asking for a judgment on her soundness as a mother, and dads go out socializing and drinking, and nobody bats an eye. And 3. Her comments indicate a pretty normal-sounding social situation. Drinks and video games with a buddy. No assholes here. You weren't aware that you were overstaying your welcome. Once you realized, you tried to reel it back. Have a nice chat with your friend and apologize to his wife for overstaying your welcome. See if you guys can find a solution and still remain social. If she'd prefer to drive you home, what's the big deal? And OP replies, it was honestly her tone that made me feel like it was a big deal. It sounded like she was honestly sick of both of our crap, and he gets kind of obnoxious when he's drunk. Meanwhile, I lose my volume button. Hearing that exasperation in her voice kinda sobered me up a bit, enough to leave. I felt bad and I didn't want to ruin anything or cause any unnecessary implications like what's being assumed in these comments. That really sucks. Why aren't you close to her, and do you have any kind of relationship with her? And OP replies, she just isn't a social person. When I first started hanging out with him, he had groups of people come to do tournament-style games at his place. Since I was the only female, I tried to socialize with her and get to know her, and she just wasn't having it. She likes to keep to herself. Whenever we have those events like that, she likes to stay in her room. I can see why the boisterous socializing might cause conflict then. I hope it's just that and there's not a weird insecurity thing going on. Honestly, I'd apologize to the wife and ask them to come to an agreement over what is the best situation while at their home. And to let you know, if y'all need to move it to a pub or something, a monthly Uber home shouldn't break the bank. I have no earthly idea why everyone is focused on the wrong thing, but okay, we'll go there. First of all, no a-holes here. You realized something that went over your head and you started to back off. You may have overshot, but oh well. Just talk to him and discuss boundaries. That should settle things out. And secondly, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you having a married friend of the opposite sex. You said it yourself. You're a full-time worker and a full-time mum. Your husband gives you one night a month to piss off and do as you please. Why is that such a bad thing? Newsflash, it isn't. Good for you, OP, for finding yourself a good balance with parenting and being yourself. Everyone is so focused on the wrong thing because this is Am I the Arsehole? So sometimes you get amazing sidebar discussions in the comments and sometimes you get people going on a tangent about how OP is obviously blank and is the arsehole because something not vaguely related. Our next post is by user Natoli, titled, Am I the Arsehole for telling my cousin/bridesmaid how much I spent on my wedding dress? So this just happened earlier today. I'm currently out of state at a resort with my extended family, so that's why we're all around each other in this situation. My mother and I went wedding dress shopping today and found a boutique selling discounted wedding dresses for a fraction of their initial price. I tried on a few of the dresses and immediately fell in love with one of them. The dress was my size and just needed a few simple alterations to fit me perfectly for my wedding day. The original price of the dress was about $1,500, but with this clearance price, it was marked down to $300, with nothing wrong with it other than it being discounted. My mother and I both agreed that it was the one and bought it right from the store to take home. Now, on the way home from the store, my mother told me not to tell anyone about how much I spent on this dress, especially not my cousin and bridesmaid, C. Now, C has been known to keep a lot of my secrets and we've been really close since we were kids. She's almost like an older sister to me, but she's also known to talk a lot, and so sometimes she may blurt some things out unintentionally. I've had my experience with that already. So C and I hung out a few hours after I got back to the resort, and I told her I found my wedding dress. She was very excited for me and asked me to see a picture. My mum was nearby and said no. She has all the pictures of the dress on her phone and hasn't sent them to me yet. And I asked why not, and obviously she wouldn't give me a clear answer and said that we'll talk later. So I let it go, and C and I went out to hang separately. C asked what the dress looked like, and I described it and told her a bit how I decided on the dress. She then asked how much we paid for it, and I told her. I explained that it was a really good deal, and she was really impressed with it as well. We ranted a bit about the wedding dress expenses after that, and then moved on. Fast forward to later, I went back to my room to meet my parents there, and they asked me tons of questions about what I told C. I mentioned I told C about how much we bought it for, and my mum blew up. I've never seen my mother that angry in a very, very long time. She screamed at me and told me that I broke her trust and that I don't respect her. She said now that C knows, everyone is going to know, and that everyone will be ridiculing her for how much she spent on the dress, and that it's embarrassing for her because now her brother and her sister-in-law will be judging her for how she bought a thrift store dress. We got into an argument from there, and now she's telling me she won't send me the pictures of the dress for anyone to see. I feel I did disrespect her wishes with not telling anyone, but I also feel like it was such a good deal, why wouldn't I want to brag about it? Am I the asshole for telling C how much I spent on the dress? Personally, no, I don't think you're an asshole for this one. I think her reaction to this news of you told your cousin how much it costs and now word's gonna get around is disproportional, but that's because I've not experienced crazy families like this, so I don't know how much of a reality this is for some people. I personally think your mother is overreacting in this situation, and I think it's fine for you to tell your cousin how much you spent on your own wedding dress. That seems like a normal thing to me, but maybe I'm the crazy one, who knows? Not the asshole OP. Now in the comments, past tense says, not the asshole. It's your wedding dress and your wedding. Your mother is obsessed with her social standing instead of focusing on your wedding day. Notice how she's upset because people will judge her? No, it's your wedding. You can talk about it with whomever you want. If you really want to stick it to her, I suggest just paying her the $300 so she can say she didn't have anything to do with it, it was all you. By all rights then, she can't complain since it's your money, your wedding and your dress. If she refuses to take the money, she's actually just the worst. As you said earlier, you can just spin it as being a responsible person. Who needs to be wasteful? Plus, you can say that it was valued at $1,500. Emphasize that. Formal fist bump says, everyone sucks here. You made an agreement with your mother, then broke the agreement within hours. You handled it badly, your mother is handling it worse, blowing up about something so trivial as the cost of a wedding dress. You agreed not to tell anyone the price, despite the fact that it is for a stupid reason, and then turned around and immediately told someone the price? Again, your mum is ridiculous for feeding the need to keep up appearances like that, but you shouldn't have disrespected her, especially since she paid for the dress. If you didn't promise, then you wouldn't be the arsehole, but since you did, you are the arsehole. Gigi Lily says, you're the arsehole. I understand your mum's request felt ridiculous to you, but you did agree to keep it to yourself and almost immediately broke that promise. You're the arsehole. Mum did ask you not to tell the price and you agreed. And yes, Mum probably will be judged by the arseholes in your family, and yes, this is deeply embarrassing for your mum. Is your bragging about a good deal worth it? And our next post is by user MailerZone, titled, Am I the asshole for being honest with my sister-in-law about why we never host family meals with her family? So my husband and I have been together since high school, married straight out, and we have 3 children together with another on the way. I have known his family for a long time. I get along really well with them for the most part, but I'll be honest that we've not hosted a family dinner with his family in a very long time. Our reason for this is simple. How much my sister-in-law's oldest 2 children, 11 and 9, eat. These kids have huge appetites. We're talking 3 pieces of chicken with a roast dinner, 2 or 3 helpings of roast potatoes, extra veggies, extra gravy. Between them, they could easily scoff what our household would eat in one meal. They are active, very sporty, and we know this lends itself to it. But it gets expensive, and my sister-in-law and the kids get pissy when someone doesn't allow them multiple helpings. We have seen issues with her and another sister when the sister said no to thirds for the kids. And if you leave the food on the table for people to take what they want, the kids leave so little for anyone. My other sister-in-law admitted that she needs to spend an extra $20 on extra food just for them, and that she struggles to prepare enough food. So my husband and I made the decision that we would not put ourselves in that position. He considered asking her to bring extra food for her kids, but other sister-in-law suggested that before, and sister-in-law was pissed. Anyway, my sister-in-law made a few comments about us not hosting before, how we owed everyone some really good dinner. Then a couple weeks ago, she asked me directly why we never host. I admit I kind of evaded the question with her then, but she brought it up again a few days later, and I was honest. I told her I did not feel we could keep up with or afford to accommodate her older 2's appetites, and we knew she felt that it was on the hosts to provide enough, so we simply didn't. She was pissed at me and at my husband. She told me I was so rude to say that to her, that I should not blame her kids for our refusal to feed the family. Other sister-in-law is backing me up, and so is my husband. My husband's brother is on my sister-in-law's side and said that it's only fair to do it for family, and don't ever blame the kids for adult choices. Am I the asshole? Personally, I'm gonna go not the asshole for this one. I think you guys need to stop this if it's such a problem that it's going to make everyone pissed off. Like, oh my god, why can't this just be a sister-in-law tradition where she feeds her kids big amounts of food and we always go to hers, so it's always fair, and people chip in? That would be lovely. Instead of going around and yelling at people for not doing their fair share and not feeding her kids. I don't know. I don't feel like OP is the asshole for this one. Now in the comments, not the asshole. I think it's time to stop hosting family dinners and have a potluck instead. If her kids have ferocious appetites, that is. Not the asshole. It's not so much how much they're eating, but that they take most of the food and don't leave enough for other people. That's just poor manners. Info. How often do they host the family and you eat at their house? OP says, we have eaten at their house maybe 3 or 4 times in the years we've been married. Then not the asshole. Presuming all your children were born after you were married, assuming about 1 kid a year, that would still be 4 to 5 years minimum of marriage. So 1 meal a year maybe at sister-in-law's? It's hers and your brother-in-law's job to feed their children, and if your other relatives are saying similar about her kids, it's not just you. I have a nephew-in-law who is 16 and huge into weightlifting, which means he can consume boatloads of food. Now, my boyfriend and I have the budget to accommodate that, but he also knows that if he's going somewhere not buffet style for a meal, it's his job to get something else to eat. So it's sister-in-law's job to teach manners that everyone gets servings of food before you get seconds, and especially before you get thirds, and if you're still hungry after dinner, we can get something more at home. Scrap Queen says, I'm gonna go with everyone sucks here. Your sister-in-law has failed to teach her kids proper manners. They should be taught to take a normal helping until everyone has gotten something to eat, and then only go back for seconds when everyone has gotten their food. And thirds should be reserved for basically what is left over. She's also showing a lack of manners by telling you that you owe them a meal. But you've eaten at their house, and I'm thinking other family members' houses more than once without a return invite to your home. There are inexpensive meals you can make, and hosting once in a while when you eat at their houses is only polite. Make spaghetti and garlic bread. Noodles are cheap. Tweens and teens are notoriously big eaters, and these are your nephews. You also need to take control of the portions by dishing the dishes, and then, as hostess, you make sure everyone has a decent portion, and your nephews then only get to gorge on what is left over, if anything. I cannot imagine having a dinner party where I didn't make extra anyway. And OP replies, extra sure, but there's a difference between having some extra and needing to make extra adult-sized portions for 4 or 5 more adults, sometimes more. Niece and nephew actually, but I see your point. It would be a lot easier if sister-in-law didn't step in every time someone tries to set a limit and demand more for her kids. This is the part that I consider you not the asshole, and even if you hosted them, you are well within the bounds of good manners to serve sufficient quantities for adult portions for all adults, plus niece and nephew, and that's it. Sister-in-law is demanding that you feed these 2 kids until they're full, and you actually don't have to do that. You can serve them food and they can eat what they're given, and then eat again when they're home. When sister-in-law demands, eye roll, that you give them more food, tell her sorry, but that was the last of it. These kids are not gonna frickin' starve to death in 3 hours because they only got 2 burgers each like everyone else. Sister-in-law can take a hit on her own food budget if she wants to encourage these kids to eat everything in sight. Everyone sucks here. You could occasionally host and have it not be a big deal. This seems pretty petty. It also seems ridiculous to go to other houses and be hosted, but never to be the host yourself. If you figure out the ratio of food costs, then just cut it down a bit. There are also ways to bulk up cheaply. Give the kids veggie sticks as a snack before dinner. Healthy and less expensive. Sister-in-law sucks a little, as she should be aware of her kids' higher eating habits and give them a snack before they head out. I almost went to You're the Asshole due to the high level of petty, as my brother has 4 kids and I have 1. This means I buy 4 presents for Christmas and birthdays and he buys 1. Oh well, luck of the draw. I'm not going to be pouty because I'm putting out more resources than my brother. And Miserable Panda 6979 asks, how often do they host you? How many kids do they actually have? You mentioned oldest 2, so they must have more. And OP replies, I've been a few times since we got married. They have 5 kids. That I'm going with not the arsehole. That's a lot of kids. If the eldest 2 have appetites like that, wait till the others get older. She's going to be spending more than $20 extra on groceries. I can see why the older sister stopped inviting them as well. Potlucks sound like they should be the standard going forward with your families. And OP replies, I believe she spends around $650 a week on groceries. You are joking. I pay less in rent. How the actual hell do they afford that? They both work, but even I don't know for sure how they manage, and I know they spend a crap ton more on parties and stuff.